Hello and welcome to the CLB Forge podcast, where we offer tools to help equip you and your church for mission, ministry, and multiplying disciples. I'm Mike Natal.
And I'm Ryan Nilsson. Welcome to episode 5. What would it be like to train for one mission field and find yourself in a completely different one? That's what's happened to today's guest. Our guest grew up in the central and mountain time zones of North America, mostly in Canada and Mexico. He has a BA in Spanish education and a BS in psychology from Montana State University and an MDiv from Lutheran Brethren Seminary. He served with summer servant teams for 9 summers, 7 of them on their training staff, 4.5 years in the LB Youth Ministries office, including 2 working with a church plant in Chandler, Arizona. Served 4 years as youth leader at Yellowstone, LB in Billings, Montana, before seminary, and 2.5 years as pastor in Birch Hill, Saskatchewan, after seminary. And then 6 years with Lutheran Brother. Wait a minute. How old are you? Are you 97? This is
getting closer.
You're definitely the most experienced person in this conversation right now. Okay, 6 years with Lutheran Brethren International Missionaries as a missionary to the Balala people in Chad. And he'll be starting as pastor at Community of Joy in Eagan, Minnesota later this summer. So please welcome our guest today, Pastor Danny Bronson. Welcome, Danny.
Solid. Welcome, Danny. Yeah, I feel like, Ryan, maybe we need to do a little something like, if we can, you know how they have those laugh tracks? You know what I'm talking about? Well,
Yeah.
like when you're like, welcome, Danny Bronson, then all of a sudden I think we should have like a cheer track where it's like, Danny, he's here. So we're inquiring. So here's what I want to ask before we really get this podcast going and we get down to the nitty gritty of asking you these questions, Danny. Yep. I need to ask you, do you still have those shoes that are individually towed?
Yes.
Amazing.
I would not go without them.
Amazing. Ryan, have you ever seen those shoes before? Those where like each individual toe is.
Yes, I have. As a member of the hiking community, I have seen them, and I have actually seen Danny wearing those.
Yes, that was actually my first initial meet of Danny, was noticing those shoes.
Are they called Vibram 5 fingers? Is that what they're called? Okay.
Yep.
Solid.
Is it correct. The same pair, or you replace them periodically? I would assume.
I have had multiple pairs, but I do need to replace them now because everything I've got is wearing out. I'm looking for new ones, but I got to find the right style and size for me.
There you go. Well, best of luck.
Well, guess what? Vibram is our sponsor, and so everyone on the show today gets new hiking boots. Just kidding. No, they're not.
Oh man,
that would be
I got all excited.
But I don't want hiking boots. I want 5 fingers.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, this is also a special occasion because it's our 5th episode. And we thought about making it a retrospective to look back at all the highlights back on our last shows, over the days. But we decided we're going to have a guest. We're going to, instead of just pausing to celebrate, we're going to keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So we're definitely not going to take any moments of silence or anything like that, or time to reflect, because we have a great guest. So Danny, thanks for being here. And right out of the gate, what I would love to ask you is, so you're currently living in Minneapolis.
I got a more serious question.
Oh.
Which do you think is better, Star Trek or Star Wars?
I am partial to Star Trek.
No matter what you say, one of us is going to be upset with you.
Right.
What did you say? What did you say?
I am partial to Star Trek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
Right with you, Ryan.
I don't know if you could tell, but that's what I think too.
Things are coming off the rails.
Good.
I enjoy them both, gentlemen. I prefer Star Trek.
Excellent. And I just want to say, Star Trek has some things that Star Wars does not. Like, for example, Star Trek has, they have recitals on their ship, music recitals.
Yes.
And they have complicated diplomatic and bureaucratic processes that they have to negotiate. I mean, you just can't get that kind of stuff from Star Wars.
Wow. So, doesn't that just sound riveting for the people at home? Wow.
Go ahead. It's magical.
It is.
Well, now that people are practically asleep, we need to wake them up somehow. So let's bring them back. So here's this question that we have. First question. Danny, you are currently living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but a few years ago, you were a missionary in Chad, Africa.
Yes.
What was involved in your preparation to go to Chad? What would that look like for someone who is feeling the call to go into international mission? What's involved with that?
Well, the particular parts of our training that were kind of organized training were the first was a 1 month course that deals with really adapting cross culturally, um, or at least trying to learn how better to adapt, go cross culturally, and also some really uh, strong basic principles in language learning, because often the language learning component is a part of that, and for us it definitely was. And so then the second organized kind of training was language school. So we did the first training, that 1 month, was in Colorado. The language school was in France. So we were there originally for a year to learn French before moving on to Chad.
Can I back you up then? So
Yeah.
you went to seminary, right? Got your
Yes.
MDiv, which is a
Yep.
3-year degree for
Yes.
kind of shaped around becoming a pastor,
Yeah.
right?
And I would say even in seminary, our thoughts were going overseas.
Okay. Yep.
So pastoring was a part of that, but also even in preparation for going overseas. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get your 4-year college degree, although it looks like you got 2 of them. And then
Yeah.
you did a double major.
Yeah, and I guess with the education, you could call it a triple major, maybe. But
Oh,
I
okay.
just did
All right.
stuff that I enjoyed, and that's the way it came out. So
Mike, I think we got an underachiever here with us today.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. Especially that they're back to back. Last episode was Tony Carlick, and remember we had to like split up his bio because it was
Yeah.
just so extensive. So
Yep.
like between Danny and Tony, it's like you and me, Ryan, we are just
Yeah.
I'm
you guys
feeling that.
are
We need to
great.
step it up. We need to step up our game, dude.
Okay. So you got your bachelor's, and then you got your master's degree. So you're 7 years in, and then you go to a 1-month cross-cultural training. Then you go to France for a year
Yeah.
for language study. Okay. And
Yeah,
then
and
was
that's
there?
not really the end. That's only the formal preparation.
Wow.
for
What else was there after that then?
Well,
Maybe you could tell us about like my next question was like, what was your ministry like in Chad? So I'm guessing
yeah,
your training continued there while you were
yeah.
also beginning ministry. So
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that.
so I would say the first part of ministry is really continued preparation. Um, I've started talking about this work as a missionary as kind of a job that has a 5-year orientation program, because you've got that formal training, but then especially in Chad, um, because of the language uh, aspect, and because French is important, but it's not the main language spoken by the people that we're ministering to. So there's at least one or two other languages that need to be learned, and so that process
Wow.
continues. And then the cross-cultural learning is informal, but it's there. I mean, it's a huge part of that training. So moving into the country in Chad, you have to learn the way of doing life there, and what are people like, what are their actions, how do they look at things, what do they do, what are their behaviors, what's family life, what's important to them, all those things. So it's continued training, and it's not like that ever stops, but really the first few years, you can start in ministry, and it's great, and we want to do that, but you're learning so much the whole time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. So once you're in Chad, what were some of the things you were doing? What was your life like as a missionary over there?
Well, so continuing the learning, that's a big part of
Yeah.
it. But the end goal, of course, is to get to be established in a location, in a village or town, and really get to know the people, and with the purpose of sharing the gospel with them. So we really, like I said, because of the orientation program aspect, or dimension to it, we really were just getting started as we got in there. But so the first part is, finding a place to live, determining where that place for ministry is, establishing that. We rented a house, added some things that would make it a little bit easier for us to be able to do ministry without always be thinking about the daily aspects of life, which most of our neighbors were doing. That's their life, is just living, getting getting the food you need. Meal preparation is a long process for the women that are making meals. Work in the fields is all day sometimes, and so those types of things. So just making it easier for us to live. So that was a part of it, and then really getting into getting to know the community, and then of course ministry aspects that we were joining, like that the church is already doing. There are some development projects like putting in wells, freshwater wells with the Living Waters Ministry. And in our area especially, we had some crop failure, especially in villages to one direction from us. And so working with the local church to alleviate some of the people's needs was a big part of how we connected with villages and people. Yeah.
Okay. What is the language that is predominantly spoken in the location that you were initially called to as a missionary?
Yeah, so we were called to the Balala people. The language, we could call it Balala. There's another name that it's referred to, Naba, partly because there are a couple people groups that use the same language, and they're not all Balala, but so that language was predominant there. We were kind of on the edge of that area where that was predominant. But so in our town, because it was a little bit bigger, about 20,000 people, there was kind of a mix. Maybe half were Balala, and then the other half were kind of a mixture of people that are there for more trade markets. They might be from other people groups around, or from the south of Chad, there for government jobs or whatever. So a little bit of mixture in the town, but the main people group in the area was Balala, and that would be their language, their own language. So
okay, wow, yeah, that's so. So is there so does everyone predominantly speak French? Is that why you learn French before you go down there, or?
No, in fact, in town that wasn't the most common. Chadian Arabic would be the most common language in the market. And the reason for learning French is kind of twofold. One, the official government business is done often in French, especially in the capital, so it's good to know that. And then the other part of it is that the Chadian Lutheran Brethren Church operates on the large scale in French. And so, in order to partner with them, it's very helpful to have French as well. So kind of two reasons for having French. But actually, the local ministry doesn't depend so much on French. That's more where the other languages come in. So Balala and Arabic.
So now the Balala and the Arabic that you guys are learning, is that something that you have an idea of when you're studying language prior to getting there? Or is that something that really you need to learn by immersing yourself in the culture?
Yeah, the learning mostly happens when you get there. I mean, some of the techniques that we learned ahead of time in our 1 month program really help to do that. There are some resources for learning Chadian Arabic. It's different than standard Arabic, although standard Arabic can be helpful. But then the local language, like for us, Balala, you really just have to go at it. Use the language learning strategies. There are some resources maybe from previous missionaries, but just go at it. Just go in and use the strategies to kind of learn what people are saying.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for that input. I think that there's a lot of people out there who they think about missionary work, but they have trouble kind of bridging what that actually functionally looks like. So thanks for kind of like bringing us into that so that we can have a better idea of all the intricacies that go into it, because it's more than just showing up and proclaiming the gospel. It is like immersing yourself into that group in order to find how the gospel fits in. So that's
Yep.
great that you
Yeah.
guys are doing that.
Yep.
So Danny, how long were you in Chad with the Balala people for, you and your family?
Well, we were in Chad for only really 2.5 years because we came back to the States, some health trouble with our fourth son, back to France again for a little bit for some more language school for Mandy, um, and then in Chad. But then even there, it took a little while getting our kind of oriented where we wanted to be because we didn't have a mission station already in a Balala town where we could just move to. So we had to determine what was the best place to start out and getting that prepared. So 2.5 years about in Chad, we really only spent 7 or 8 months in the village where we were starting to work. So not a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, I heard you kind of hint on it a little bit. What were factors that brought you and your family back that you had to return back to Minneapolis for? What were some of those factors that brought you guys back?
Well, one of the things I probably overlooked, and my wife might be mad at me about, that in the intro I didn't give the info on my family, which would be that I'm married and to Mandy, a wonderful woman, and we have 6 kids, so 6 boys. And so the thing that brought us back is we were actually back in the States on home assignment for 9 months to visit churches, connect, get some rest, and see family. And during that time, our 6th son was born, and so he had some health complications, needed a liver transplant. And at first, we wanted to consider whether we could still just delay our return to Chad and delay it a little bit, but still go back. And really, just the more we were finding out about all of it, just realized that at this point, at least, that return is not possible, just because of the need, the healthcare needs that he has. This last winter, he was in the hospital 5 or 6 times, and we anticipate that maybe next winter might be the same. Probably better, but might still need that hospital care. And so there's a possibility that maybe distantly down the road we could maybe, but at this point we just said it doesn't pay to wait for that. So we just kind of said we've got to just plan on being back here, and we'll move forward with that plan. Yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of. I would imagine if I were in your place, I would feel a lot of grief about that. I mean, it's clear you're doing the right thing for your family. You're doing the right thing, but
Right.
after all that preparation I remember you and I met. I think we met for the first time in high school at a Hillcrest
Yeah.
mission conference.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right.
And
Yep.
I mean, you had missionary work on your mind then, and
Yep.
that's like almost 25 years ago. That's probably 24 years ago.
I know exactly. Yep.
So all this time, thinking this is where God's calling you, sensing that calling, literally having a call,
Right.
preparing for it, going there, being there. Has that been confusing, frustrating? Imagine your conversations with God have been.
Yeah, it's
Colored by
definitely the
that?
kind of thing where I say we just have to trust that God has His plan, and I know He does, and so resting in that. But yeah, I mean it keeps
Yeah.
coming back like, man, is this really
Yeah.
like I was so sure, and I would say that was God's plan for that time. I thought it was going to continue, but um, you know, uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're transitioning into this, and just seeing how God is using that experience to shape how we do ministry here, getting
Yeah.
started into new ministry, and what lessons have we learned, things like that. I mean, it's just and even being a supporter of the mission work that's there, encouraging others that can go, encouraging others to consider going. Maybe our role is doing that. Maybe who knows.
Yeah. Well, so I've got a question for you about how your training and experiences preparing to do mission work elsewhere have impacted how you live now and do ministry moving forward. So I work for North American Mission, and part of my job, I work with churches that need to revitalize and find new strength and health. And I also help plant churches. And a common factor in all of that is that people, all of us Christians here in North America, we're all on a mission field, one of the biggest mission fields in the world. And even if our neighbors speak English, which they may not necessarily, but even if they speak English, it's a different language. It's a different culture.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset, different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And I often encourage churches to think of themselves as missionaries.
Yeah.
That their church is a mission outpost, and that they are missionaries to their neighbors.
Yeah.
And they have to do a lot of the things they see international missionaries doing. Can you tell us a little bit about how, I could see someone saying, "Oh, what a shame that Danny and his family aren't able to be in Chad." I look at it and say, what a blessing that we have somebody so well prepared for missionary work, working in the North American mission field.
Right.
How would you say that your experiences and training have shaped and prepared for how you engage in life and ministry here?
Yeah, well, I would say you hit it right on the head there with the idea of the cross. I mean, I would say like cross cultural. Just looking at I would say that as a missionary going to a different country, you're going cross culturally. But then, like you mentioned, people are different, and you can have somebody that looks exactly like you, but their experiences are different. Their culture is different. If they're not believers, their culture is different. The worldview is different, and that's a different culture. Not to minimize larger culture, but that a group might have, but that's their culture. And the training that we did before heading overseas, that 1 month program, especially the 2 weeks that dealt with going cross culturally, there were multiple times during that training where I said, I wish our pastors had this training.
Yeah.
And a big part of it was just looking at, even transitioning, for a pastor to transition into a new congregation. That congregation is a different culture. And I know you guys, like Ryan, you're from Connecticut. Michael, you're from New Jersey, right?
Yep.
Grew up in New Jersey.
Got it.
Can you say that you were totally prepared for the Midwest when you moved to Minnesota?
Not at all.
Like, that's a different culture, right?
Yeah.
And you go and so a pastor transitioning, and the big thing is that even if you're not moving, if a pastor or even a congregation, if a congregation is thinking about reaching out into the community, they're doing something different, right? And so they're leaving what's familiar and going to something that's unfamiliar. And one of the pictures that we had in our training was getting uprooted, crossing a bridge, and being replanted in another place. And so if a pastor's moving to a new congregation, that's obviously happening, and taking your family with you on that. I mean, that's what's happening. And so really thinking about what are the changes that we're all doing right now. And so 2 things that were really helpful for me in that were, one, we learned how to look at the paradox, and they use the paradox to remind us of that. We have a yuck duck and a yay duck. So in transition, this is the paradox, because it's good and bad at the same time. You like that? Yeah.
A yuck duck.
That I think Mike and I can handle that kind of training.
So even with our kids now, sometimes, if things are going on, we'll just say, okay, each one of us take a turn. What's a yuck duck for you right now? And they can share, this is, we're moving to a new house. What's a yuck duck? Oh, we got our friends close by here. But what's a yay duck? Well, we just saw the park that we're going to, and there are plenty of kids playing there, so yuck ducks and yay ducks and everything, and that's true. And then the other thing that really hit me was, as going cross-culturally or going to reach people with the gospel, we hear Paul in 1 Corinthians say, I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. But the thing that struck me is the person leading this training said, how can we do that when we don't even do it with each other? Speaking of husband and wife, parents and kids, within the church.
Yeah.
We want to do that with our, people we don't know, but the people we know, we're not doing that. So that was really big, just saying, oh yeah, am I really stepping into my wife's world? Getting to know what is her perspective. Am I giving that same concern to learning about her as I am to learning about the Balala people,
Mm.
or the whatever, the bar community, the guys that just hang out every night at the bar, or the immigrant population, or whatever this is that we see as different, that we're trying to learn about. Am I doing just the same thing with my family or in the congregation with other members of the congregation? Are we doing it? And probably the answer is no.
Right.
So that's a big part of it, just really thinking that way.
Yeah, that's great. That really kind of puts things into perspective and gives us the ability to kind of look at things from a different framework. So, Danny, as we kind of wrap up here today, I wanted to give you, one opportunity to really share with the people who are listening. What would be like one major takeaway that you've had, other than yuck ducks and yay ducks, which now I'm literally going to use yuck duck and yay duck any chance that I get. And so other than that major takeaway, what would you say is something that has benefited you through international ministry that now you have adopted stateside that might benefit other people from knowing? What would that be?
Right. One thing, hard to choose, but I'd say, even just from my growing up in a different culture, partly would be, a missionary goes with their whole life to another country and to another culture. And so it envelops their whole life. And I would say, just looking at our life that way, even here, how do I involve my whole life in the gospel? Where do I live?
Yeah.
I choose where I live based on that. What neighborhood, all that, so just looking at our whole life in that context of going to people.
Nice. Yeah, that mindset of being sent is so important too. So thanks, Pastor Danny. We are so encouraged that you were willing to sit down and talk to us as a guest. We're going to be praying for you and your family as you begin the transition to be a new pastor at Community of Joy. And we're excited to see how God's going to use you. We know that he's going to, and we're just excited to see how that's going to happen. So thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and thanks to the listeners, too, who tuned in. Don't forget to subscribe to The Forge so that you can get notifications whenever a new podcast drops. And feel free to share this resource with friends or family or colleagues. So thanks so much for listening, and we hope that you tune in next time. Have a great day.